What's up, everyone? In this video, we're going to upgrade our Payload CMS instance from 3.11 to 3.18. I'll highlight important new features and bug fixes and troubleshoot as we go. Before we get started though, make sure you're subscribed to my channel and getting notifications so you never miss when I release a video about Payload CMS, nextjs, and more. Now, let's dive in. Currently, our project is in 3.11, so we'll go to our package.json file and move all our dependencies from 3.11 to 3.12. So I'll do that by selecting one and then replacing all, and then we need to run pnpmi in order for those upgrades to take place. As that goes, let's take a look at the release notes. The key things I want to highlight here are scheduled publish and unpublished feature and filter options args have been updated to include the rec object. At 3.12, the publish unpublish feature was unfinished as it didn't allow you to delete an unpublished event, but that issue has since been fixed in a newer version, which we'll go over soon. In order to enable this feature, you need to enable drafts in your collection by adding versions, drafts, schedule publish. So let's do that in our posts. Up at the top here, we'll just add versions, then we need to add drafts, and then we'll set schedule publish to true. So when we spin up our development server and then log in to our local host, we can go to our blog posts, create a new blog post, and we can see that we can schedule publish here by setting a time and a date. So we have nothing to schedule, so let's move on to filter options, which now allows you to use the rec object, which gives you access to payload, user, and locale in your filter options. I don't have anything with filter options here, so if I go to our users array, which is a relationship field, we can space this out to make it easier to see. We can then add filter options, which, as you can see now, takes rec as an argument, which gives us access to payload. It also gives us access to user, and it gives us access to locale. So we'll delete that as we don't have any use for it here in this template project. There are a couple of other useful features and bug fixes for those who use Postgres and Markdown for their projects. But we'll move on to version 3.13. So again, we will just quit our development server, select 3.12, and then do a replace all, run pnpmi, then spin up our development server again. In this version, you gain more control over how to disable GraphQL, you get a new translation, and you get the ability to use onMount in your code fields. The feature I want to focus on here, though, is the ability to override the lexical default placeholder. You can do this by going to any initialized Lexical Editor and adding an admin option. So I should have one in my post config, and I do. And below features, we can add an admin option, which then takes placeholder and any string that you would like to use. This is a string. So when I save this, refresh my admin UI, you can see now that the placeholder text has changed to this is a string. So this will enable you to change the placeholder to whatever would be useful to your content editors. There are several more bug fixes that I would recommend reading through, but nothing that jumps out to me as a common problem. I will call out, though, that this version introduced an update to the documentation to include a rather robust example of building a custom feature in Lexical. Next up is 3.14, so we'll select our 3.13.0, and replace all with 3.14, and just like before, run pnpm install. This version is light on features, with just one feature to add Estonian language support. In bug fixes, there was some work done to make sure access restrictions were respected in scheduled publish unpublished documents, and that the save button is now disabled until the upload of a file is ready. Most importantly, this version fixes an error in JSX rendering of internal links by defining internal doc to href, which gets rid of a TypeScript error as seen in my video about rendering lexical content on the front end. Next up is 3.15. So again, we'll select these and replace all with 3.15 and run pnpm install. And 3.15 is again light on features but big on bug fixes. A few quality of life features were included, like a specific warning about missing storage adapters on upload collections. You are now allowed to set max depth to 0 in your join fields. If you don't need to access relationships in your join fields, it's recommended you do this to reduce the amount of data sent to your front end. So we have on our users collection a join field, which we can then now add max depth of 0 because we don't need any kind of relationship from those posts. You're now able to add reply to the API when sending emails from resend. To see how to set up resend to take care of your emails, watch my video on setting up the Payload CMS email adapter. The reply to field allows you to change who the person replies to when responding to emails. So in our post config, we do have a hook that allows us to send an email, and all I need to do is add reply to in order to configure that. But we don't need to set that up, so I'll comment this out again and move forward. You're also now able to disable the div container that comes with the rich text serializer that Payload provides. Simply add disable container to true in your rich text component. So we're going to search for our rich text converter, come over here to then add disable container by setting it to true. And so this comes in handy for when you provide your own container around the rich text serializer. 3.15.1 came out shortly after 3.15, but nothing of note was included aside from a few bug fixes and patches. Now let's update to 3.16. So I'll take 3.15, update to 3.16, and hit replace all, and then we'll run npm install. A few new features came out with 3.16, including the consolidation of REST API handling and the ability to auto-run jobs. For bug fixes, we're now able to schedule publish before saving a draft, which just adds more flexibility to the publish-unpublish feature. There were also several documentation updates, including an update around the before validate documentation. Next up is 3.17.1. 3.17 produced errors for some users, so it's not worth installing and showing, but we'll still go over the features and bug fixes from that version. So I'll update all dependencies from 3.16.0 to 3.17.1. We'll replace all and then run npm install. In this version, we're now able to delete our scheduled published documents. So if you enabled those back in 3.12, you can now delete items you've added for the future. You can also now see a new paragraph button below your rich text field by just hovering over the bottom of the field. It's this plus button when you hover over it. You can disable that by adding your admin option below features again and typing in hide insert paragraph at end by assigning that to true. This version also updates the version of Lexical, which is where the error came from in 3.17. The error doesn't persist in 3.17.1. For bug fixes, the placeholder in lexical rich text fields had incorrect padding at small screen sizes, so that's been fixed. And that lands us on 3.18. So we will select 3.17.1 and replace it with 3.18.0, replace all, and then run npm. This version introduced new features like JPEG XL image size calculation and adding JSX and HTML converters for tab nodes. There's also a new multi-tenant plugin that was added in this version. There are also new examples added that show Payload's local API being used with Remix and Astro. Key bug fixes include things like scheduled publish jobs are now deleted when the document is deleted. The hide insert paragraph at end option for lexical rich text now works. Before, it didn't actually hide the paragraph button. And that's it for our upgrade guide. As you can see, the Payload CMS team is still hard at work at adding new features and fixing bugs as they appear. These changes all took place in the span of about 3 weeks, so I know we can expect much more to come in the near future. If you found this upgrade guide helpful, please like the video and share it with others who might find it useful as well. Check to make sure you're subscribed to my channel and receiving notifications so you never miss when I release a new video about Payload CMS, Next.js, and more. If you have questions or suggestions, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Until then, I'll see you on the next one.